The first year or two after my diagnosis were tough. Really, really tough. Grappling with the diagnosis of a lifelong illness, struggling to understand how it happened, and fears of what was to come. It was really hard. I also struggled with communicating with people about my diagnosis and my symptoms. Everyone had a comment or a suggestion, and sometimes they were hard to hear. Today, I'm going to share some of the things that I struggled with and how I've changed my perspective over the years. Let's start with the comments from others. Have you ever heard things like this? "You've got this. You're going to beat this. I have a friend who has MS and they're fine." I remember thinking, I totally don't have this. How am I going to beat this when no one in the history of the disease has beaten it yet? Or bully for your friend. "I'm not fine. I'm so far from fine." Or how about these? "Have you tried yoga? I know someone with MS who runs marathons." Yeah, I'd been doing yoga for years, and I've never been a runner, and I had no plans to become one. Or how about these? "MS is caused by parasites. You need to take these supplements to fix it. MS is a virus. Have you tried this cure that I saw online? Have you seen this person that cured themselves?" Boy, I got so defensive when I got these comments. Sometimes they felt so flippant or felt uneducated or just downright ridiculous. I recently passed an anniversary of my diagnosis, and I've been reflecting on my journey with MS a lot. When I look back at my notes and posts from those first couple of years, I see how I was really, really struggling. I was ruminating a lot, like all the time, about all the bad things. I would dare say I ventured into brooding and agonizing. It wasn't helpful. Does any of this sound familiar? Did any of you hear these things from well-meaning people? Did you struggle with your fears? Let me know in the comments below. Today, I'd like to share a bit of how I've changed and how my feelings have evolved, how ruminating didn't serve me, and how I now react to people when they share comments or suggestions. So let's start with what ruminating is. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines ruminate as to go over in the mind repeatedly and often casually or slowly, to chew repeatedly for an extended period, or to chew again what has been chewed slightly and swallowed, chew the cud, to engage in contemplation. We're not going to talk about literally chewing cud, but the definition of chewing repeatedly for a long period of time figuratively fits. I chewed on things for a long period of time. For me, some of the most difficult parts of living with MS was not the symptoms, but how it was affecting my relationships and how I interacted with others, and my fears about the future. When I was first diagnosed, my mind immediately went to Annette Funicello. For those of you who are a bit younger than me, she was this fantastic, vivacious, funny actor and singer. I first saw her on the Mickey Mouse Club, and she became really well known for roles in beach movies like Beach Party and Beach Blanket Bingo. She also had MS. She was diagnosed in 1987, and by 2009, she could no longer walk or talk and was on a feeding tube. She died in 2013 at the age of 70 from complications from MS. Oh, I thought about that a lot. I ruminated on her story. I chewed on it over and over. I kept thinking about it and thinking about it. I was so scared this was going to be my future, languishing for years, unable to walk or talk and on a feeding tube. I agonized over it. It stole such precious time from me. I started seeing a therapist shortly after my diagnosis, and she's been invaluable to me. I still see her, and we talk about everything, not just MS. Our mental health is just as important as our physical health. Did you know that over 50% of people with MS also have depression? Depression can be considered a distinct symptom of MS. We aren't depressed because we have MS, it's a symptom of MS. I highly recommend speaking with a therapist. It can be so helpful to have someone not related to us or friends with us to give us an objective opinion or offer tools to help us cope. Another thing I did was to let the intellectual side of my personality take over. I'm a problem solver. When something is wrong, I try to figure out how to fix it. I decided to get educated. Part of my early education on MS was from doctors, but also Dr. Google. I know. So many people say, stay away from Google or the internet. I'm not one of those people. Information is power. I encourage you to look for information on MS, but do it smartly. Don't search for the worst that can happen or all the symptoms, but search for data on treatments and outcomes. Search for how to live well with MS. Look for reputable sources like large peer-reviewed studies, or find well-established organizations and communities. Heck, I've already done a lot of this for you. I will put a link in the description below for a handout that I compiled of information about MS. I'll also put a link to some of the books about living with MS and living healthy that I found very helpful. Once I had the facts and information, I was able to stop brooding over the possible worst outcomes and started focusing on the possible best outcomes. Did you know that more than 70% of people with MS never end up needing mobility aids? Or that our lifespan and longevity are close to that of the general public? It's true. I recently did a video on longevity that I will put in a link above and in the description below so you can check it out after this one. Another thing that's evolved over time is how I talk with others about my MS. I had to figure out how to effectively communicate with others about it. I quickly learned that there's no one-size-fits-all solution for this one. It depends on who we're talking to, right? It depends on a relationship with them. Are they family, friends, acquaintances, others with MS, strangers? One of my biggest aha moments was when I realized that all these well-meaning comments were just that, well-meaning. All these people meant well. They genuinely wanted to help or were trying to offer encouragement. I had to learn how to let go of the negative emotions and shift my perspective. I used to react by thinking things like this. They don't know how hard it is living with MS. They don't understand that MS is incurable. They have no idea what they're talking about. And now that I've had this shift in perspective and realized that people are genuinely trying to help, I have 4 typical ways that I respond when I get comments or suggestions. Thank you. I've looked into that. It's not for me. Or, thank you, but my health team and I have a plan to treat my MS. Or, that does sound interesting. I will check it out. Or my favorite, It acknowledges that we heard them, but it doesn't agree or disagree with them. We can then change the subject if we don't want to continue the conversation. The next thing that occupied a lot of my time and mind at the beginning was I used to worry about being a problem. I worried what others thought of me. One of the things that I changed was I switched to a whole food plant-based diet. I used to worry about meeting with friends for lunch or dinner or traveling with them. I didn't want to be a problem or a burden. My shift is that it's not about the food. When I go out or travel, it's about the people, not the food. I now know that if we eat at a restaurant, I can review the menu ahead of time to see what options there may be. Most restaurants have side dishes that I can ask them to put together to make a lovely meal for me, or I can have a great salad. If there isn't anything on the menu, I can call ahead and ask if there's anything the chef can do for me. And if there truly isn't anything I can eat, I can ask my friends if we can change restaurants. Or I can eat ahead of time and then join them for a cocktail so I can still enjoy their company. I also used to worry about what others thought of me when I was struggling with my symptoms, or if I needed to cancel plans or leave early from an event. I would wonder what they thought, if they were judging me, or worse, pitying me. It took some time and some help from my therapist, but I learned that what other people think of me is none of my concern. I can't change their thoughts, and honestly, the people that really matter to me, they think of me with kindness and concern. The people that I'm not close to, I really don't care what they think. I had to shift my perspective again. I had these psychological barriers that I needed to overcome. I had to change from a negative mindset to a positive one. Joyce Myers said, being negative makes a difficult journey more difficult. Living with MS can be hard. It can be freaking hard. Shifting our perspective can help make the journey less difficult. Have you shifted your perspective on your journey with MS? I'd love to hear your stories. Let me know in the comments below. To see more on living with MS or chronic illness, watch these videos next. Please like and subscribe to support the channel, and until next time, be well.